I want to share about a term I call invisible work. It's this phenomenon that is around this idea that our most productive selves are not when we're on Zoom or at the whiteboard or churning through email, but our most productive selves are when we have stepped away from the laptop and we are engaged in daydreaming and going for long walks or engaging in a really meaningful conversation with someone that has nothing to do with the work at hand. Invisible work, as I'm talking about it, is not the invisible work related to what feminists have referred to, which is the unpaid, unappreciated labor that women often do. So it's not the gendered idea of invisible work. But as we're talking about this fourth industrial revolution, where tech is ubiquitous, and there's going to be a lot of casualties as basic tasks get taken over by automation and robotics and those sorts of things, it's going to behoove the best companies and the best led teams to allow more space and time for the invisible work to be done. The reason this is important is because when we do invisible work, when we are daydreaming, when we are resting, when we are walking, when we are allowing other neurosynapses in the deeper recesses of our brain to be activated, that's where the real synchronicity of ideas takes place. So years ago, I read a book, a memoir about the leader and founder of Patagonia, Yvon Chouinard. And the name of this book was Let My People Go Surfing. His clue into getting the most productivity from his team was to allow them to go catch the surf in the middle of the afternoon, if that made sense for them, because he knew that by allowing them to play, to do that invisible work, where the neurosynapses in the different regions of their brain were being activated, they would come back to work much more recharged, available, and actually the synthesis of ideas would have occurred to allow them to put their best foot forward at work. So in 2021, Indeed did some research that showed that 52% of people are burned out. This is even more reason that we need to allow people to step away from their laptop and actually develop new metrics of productivity. Metrics of productivity that aren't just about output and how many widgets we're putting out, that are much more about value. And value today can be generated in a number of ways that are going to be very different from what they looked like 50 years ago. Now, how does this look if you are on a team? How can you encourage invisible work if you are part of a team, if you're leading a team, if you lead an entire organization? Well, I have a few ideas. Number one, begin to incentivize invisible work. Give people the money and the time to tinker, to do other things, to make sure that they're not constantly doing the churn of work that is not necessarily equivalent to their most productive selves. One idea is to incentivize people to connect to strangers, either strangers who they may not know of in your own organization or strangers outside of your organization. And you might even want to gamify it and look upon it as a quest. Because the more we allow ourselves to interact with people who think differently about the problems we are staring at on a daily basis, the more new questions emerge for us, and we will approach our work with a fresh eyes perspective. This is one way to approach and uplift and optimize invisible work. Number two, encourage people to get out of the building. When I worked in the fashion apparel industry, we often had this phrase called shopping the market, which meant that you got out of the building, out of your desk, and you went to the local mall or shopping center, and you walked into the stores to really see how customers were interacting with products, how salespeople were talking about the product. You yourself could see the presentation. It's a lot different than placing orders through on a screen or being on meetings with designers and buyers than actually shopping the market and being on the floor. So what's the equivalent in your business? Similarly, in the Japanese culture, in the factory floor, there's a term called Genba. And Genba literally means where value is created. And where value is created is on the shop floor. So don't just stick to the statistical data, but also get the qualitative data. Have conversations with people about the products, services, and experiences that you're generating. Number 3, take breaks. And this may be baby steps. It may be one morning per quarter, we're going to have a hiatus on emails and meetings. And the reaction may be one of shock. You might say, we can't possibly do that. What if our clients need us? Well, it's amazing how clients begin to respond to the boundaries that we set up. I cannot emphasize enough how significant and important it is to take breaks, to pause. So many people today are complaining that they don't actually have the time to do the work that they're requested to do because they're not invited to step away from their laptop, take pauses, and do the invisible work. Here's the thought that I'll leave you with. As we're all trying to innovate, we have to actually understand what exactly an innovation is. An innovation is an invention converted into scalable value. And how do you go from this idea, this concept, this invention to an innovation? It's creativity. And creativity thrives when we decide to incentivize invisible work, when we get out of the building, and when we are committed to taking more breaks. And if you don't believe me, try reading Yvon Chouinard's Let My People Go Surfing. He's the founder of Patagonia. It's a great book.